Hey everyone, Coach and Hoka athlete Sage Canaday here with another Training Talk Tuesday. Today we're going to answer your top voted question from last week. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions. Really appreciate all the feedback and support and thumbs up votes. But we're going to dive right in with the top voted question. Also hope you are doing well. Here it is. General tips on preventing injury. For example, stretching, cross-training, strength training. So first thing I'd say is to check out my playlist. I got running form playlist on this YouTube channel, as well as diet, injury prevention types of things. And I'll start off with my typical legal disclaimer. I'm obviously not a medical professional or doctor. Consult your doctor before trying anything new. It's a legal thing we say in the U.S. so we don't get sued. But I do think, truthfully, especially after my pulmonary embolism 3 months ago, that it's a good idea to get checked out thoroughly to make sure your health is in order. People are born with certain abnormal things, like it could be something as small as a leg length discrepancy. Most people have some sort of leg length discrepancy. That might be harder to check, but scoliosis of the spine, muscular imbalances that could be genetic. You could say, hey, why did I picked the wrong parents, right? Maybe they have some sort of foot or tendon injury that's kind of been passed down that you might be more susceptible to when you start training really hard. So it's good to be aware of these things and these predispositions, whether they're genetic or they're through lifestyle factors or your age or how you get into training, which I'll touch on in a minute here. It's good to go to the doctor, maybe have them listen to your heart. They could, do some scans, some testing, some blood tests, make sure you're not deficient on anything or have any underlying health condition, so that when you start training running or you start a new training block, so to speak, if you're an experienced runner, they know that there's nothing wrong with your pulmonary function or some sort of imbalance in your diet that may be causing a deficiency that might make you more prone to something like a bone break or a stress fracture or some sort of skeletal muscular injury, but also things like having a heart attack or having a pulmonary embolism or something like that. So it is good to be careful, and that's the first thing I preach is health is wealth, right? You want to stay on top of that because as you get into more serious training, you're going to be stressing your body, and you want that to be a good stress, not all destructive stress that's going to lower your energy and make you not feel good. So it's good to have that checked out, and it comes down to individual things. Like I said, some things are genetic, some things could be lifestyle, some things overlap with mental stress, right? Workplace stress, family stress, work-life balance. Jumping into your training attitude or your training program, your attitude on that could really shape how things go for you. So in terms of like stretching, that could be very individual. I do believe that some stretching is good. It's something I wish actually I did more in my 20s when I was running super high mileage weeks, training for road marathons mainly. And even in college, we did do a good routine though. It's good to have general mobility. You don't have to be super flexible though. A lot of people try to overstretch and they actually are more likely to injure themselves if you try to force a stretch. It's always better to stretch, a little after your run. Make sure you sit and stand and walk with good posture. Make sure you don't have those muscle imbalances, like I said, because that's what develops some tightness that could put kinks in your form over time, something I've learned firsthand. So, some light stretching after runs, some light mobility is always good. Realize that runners generally are pretty inflexible, especially in their hamstrings, and some rigidity is okay. You don't have to be like a gymnast or be super flexible. It's okay to have some not being flexible. It's just if it's hurting your range of motion in your running form, that's what you want to look at. And if there's certain tight areas over others that you need to address more than others, say it's your calf or Achilles tendon, something like that, pretty sensitive area, plantar fasciitis, bottom of the foot, you might have to focus more on doing stuff to address that issue compared to someone else when maybe they have a tight IT band, right, or along the outside of their knee, or a tight quadricep muscle in the front of their thigh, side of the thigh, TFL, something like that. They might have to address that more, and it might depend on your leg length discrepancy. It might depend on your foot, shoe size, all that stuff. So, that's the thing with stretching. Another key point I want to break down is approaching your training plan. getting into taking your easy days easy. A lot of times people get injured because they rush into things. You run too fast on your easy days. You're supposed to be able to have a conversational pace, run nice and relaxed with good form, and not be always pushing. We want to get in shape really fast. We want to push almost every day. It doesn't work like that. And as you increase your mileage or try to get a better aerobic base, which in Coach Sandy and I have higher running training plans on our website, higherrunning.com, that is a business plug, you try to gradually increase your weekly mileage or how many miles or kilometers you run each week. And if you start doing that too fast, you're increasing mileage. That's one stress. You start running too fast on your easy days. That's another stress. Now you have two stresses. You need to do one at a time and be patient and slowly build up over weeks and weeks and weeks or months and months and months instead of trying to do it all in 1 or 2 weeks, right? If you try to jump up your mileage too fast, you could get hurt, skeletal muscular injury. If you try to run too fast on your easy days, you get hurt. If you try doing crazy hill work, high intensity hill repeats and doing all these crazy mountain long runs, all of a sudden you're not used to that vertical gain, you could get hurt, right? It's a lot of stresses. So be patient is what I'm saying. Be patient, take your easy days easy. Can't preach that enough. I've done whole videos on just doing that, taking your easy days easy, relaxing some days. Eventually you could work into building an intensity, doing formal speed work, high intensity long runs and things like that. Races, obviously, but you got to be patient. It's the number one thing we see with injuries. People try to do too much too soon. You bite off more than you could chew. Or what do they say in the movie Top Gun? Your ego's writing a check that your body can't cash, I believe. So I digress there. As we talk about that cross training, it's kind of the same sort of attitude. So you have a structured training plan. Maybe you're getting more serious. You want to run a marathon or half marathon or maybe even qualify for Boston or something like that, crack 3 hours. You still have to balance things. So even if you're running 100 miles a week, 160K a week, most people don't get up that high, but I know people that do that to train for Boston or something like that. You still need a balance. You might still need to take some days off, and when you take those days off, you might want to mix it up with other activities. From a year 12-month standpoint, you might want to get into having an off season, so to speak, right? In the winter, a lot of times in the northern hemisphere, we see a lot of successful mountain ultra trail runner athletes do skimo training or cross country skiing, or maybe they're more like a triathlete and they like to swim, so they do some swimming exercise, or they like to ride their bike, mountain bike, road cycling, maybe just stationary elliptical stuff, non-impact stuff. It's good because it gives the body a break from all the pounding of just running just in one, it's not a multi-plane motion sport like other sports, so you're more prone to repetitive stress, more prone to repetitive injuries if you're running a lot, especially on pavement year round. I've done that a lot, and it hurts eventually. Mentally and physically, you kind of need a break. So that's kind of the idea of patience and planning out your year or your training cycle. After you finish your big race and marathon, you need to chill out, take a break, eat some ice cream, sit on the couch. Then maybe after that, you get into doing some cross-training activities, preferably non-impact. Non-impact meaning, you don't have the gravitational force of each step coming down. Even on a bike, I was actually riding my bike today. You could be spinning at a pretty high heart rate. It's good for the heart and lungs, but you don't have all that pounding. It works out the legs too. But, swimming, same sort of thing. So skiing, all the cross training, mixing that in for some weeks or months out of each year, taking breaks in between will help you prevent or reduce the risk, I should say, of injury, right? If you try to race a marathon every month of the year, eventually that's going to catch up to you. Most people can't handle more than 2 or 3 marathons, and how good are they? And maybe not your peak marathons. Some people might do 4, 5, 6 races a year, but after that, you're kind of flirting with injury risk, or at least an overtraining risk, in that you're going to not race at your full potential. So that kind of cross-training balance is real key. And the strength training is the same sort of thing as stretching. It could be very individualized. I do believe there's a lot of benefit in that, especially with correcting running form, bad mistakes in running form that could cause injury or repetitive strain, or addressing muscle imbalances that might occur over time due to lifestyle factors or training factors that you need to correct. But like I said, it could be very individualized. It's good in general to have strong activated glutes or butt muscles. It's good to have strong calf muscles. It's good to have good running form in general, strong core area, abdominal, lower back area. is real key. So even some simple planks, sit-ups, push-ups, things like that, light lifting. You don't have to go crazy in the gym necessarily to be a great distance runner, but to address some imbalances or injuries that you might have, you might need the guidance of a physical therapist or a strength coach and get those things checked out. It might even be a mobility type of issue as well, that more stretching needs to happen first before you could get into that specific strength training. But a lot of times we get into strength training after we've gotten injured because we realize there's been some sort of instability, or maybe you twisted your ankle and you need to strengthen the tendons and muscles around that in the lower leg, but it could be related to something like your gear. So the last point I'll touch on is footwear and shoes. Obviously, I'm a Hoka One One sponsored athlete. Actually, it's just Hoka now. Hoka shoes, I stay within the brand, but people rotate with different models. It's good to have a rotation of shoes. The number one thing I've seen with shoes, and I've worked in the industry in footwear, sizing people for shoes, is they wear their running shoes too small. And that could cause a lot of problems. You need some wiggle room for your toes to spread out, right? So pretend my fingers are your toes. You want to have wiggle room. You don't want your heel slipping. You don't want blisters. A lot of people get blisters because the shoe's too tight. It's too tight in the width, or their front toe is hitting the front. So you need to find a good fitting pair of shoes. Realize distance running, your feet will swell over the course of a day or over a race, especially the longer distance races, and realize that it's better to be a little bit on the bigger side than have them be too small. You got to let your foot be able to move a bit in the shoe, and having an appropriate shoe, again, is real independent on running form, or real dependent on running form, I should say, which is very individualized. So, some shoe models, even within a certain brand, are going to work a lot better for you and feel a lot better for you than others. I rotate it up. Changing the shoes is great. I know they're very expensive. There's a certain lifespan to shoes and the cushion and support they offer you. There's also some benefit to mixing up the terrain that you're running on, right? Pavement, asphalt, very hard surface, uniform surface, cause a lot more stress. If you could find some sort of softer surface, be it grass or dirt, paths or trails or soccer fields, or even a track or treadmill, is generally better to at least have some sort of mix in there. Might be harder if you live in the middle of a big city, but rotating the surface you're running on, I mix it up between roads and trails, could be very good because it's constantly challenging your body, but also constantly giving you a break from all of that repetitive strain, which is probably the number one thing that causes injury. So that's my talk on trying to reduce the risk of injury. It's a tough sport. A lot of people face injuries over their career or over their running, and it's not all no pain, no gain type of attitude, but you do have to be careful, and there are these things you could do to help reduce the risk of your injury, so you get more enjoyment, hopefully, out of your running, be able to train more consistently. You're going to be able to get faster then if you could do that and build your aerobic base, especially in the long distance events. So thanks so much for subscribing on here. Like these videos, thumbs up if you like them, share them across social media, really helps me out a lot. Thanks to the Patreon supporters for really making this channel possible. Again, shout out to title sponsor Hoka One One, keeping the dream alive. Again, check out our training plans. Coach Sandy and I sell training plans for any service, any distance. We got some free downloads on there as well. HigherRunning.com really helps us out a lot. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.